Ever since Susan Whatmough from Boston, East England, has been allowed to vote, the Conservative Tory Party has had her vote secured. "I've always voted for the Tories, but I wouldn't do it again," says the red-haired woman in the fur coat as the sun slowly sets over the half-timbered alleys of the small town idyll. The fact that British Prime Minister Boris Johnson not only allowed parties during the lockdown in Downing Street, but probably even celebrated them himself, was the last straw for them. "I lost a son during that time, and the Queen lost her husband, and he's having a party," she says. If you are looking for places where people support the Tories, the small town of Boston is a safe bet. In the most recent general election in 2019, the Tories achieved around 77%. The constituency has always been a bastion of the party. In Boston, 3 out of 4 citizens voted in favor of the Brexit referendum. So what do you think about the party affair, which has been the number one topic of conversation in Westminster for weeks, are the people asked? Do you want to continue to be ruled by party king Boris Johnson in Boston? Or is the topic of no interest in the real world at all, as the new Brexit Secretary of State Jacob Rees-Mogg recently suspected? "I am for him," says Kelly Brendan, who sells fruit and veg at the marketplace. "Everyone did it," she says of the lockdown parties. "I know he should be a role model, but he wasn't. Get over it. It's not that big of a deal." Well, it's not the only time on this foray where some media were around there that someone admits to having celebrated one or the other time, just not to have been caught. A retiree with a thick brown moustache hopes his peers won't overthrow Johnson anytime soon. "The Prime Minister is a bit of a clown, but also brilliant for our country." Well, you should have explained the brilliant part for once. But such clear advocates are not found on every corner. The Tories voted, yes, many voted in Boston, the man in the plaid shirt, the one in the blue down jacket, Susan Whatmough and her husband, and many others. They still think the Prime Minister's time is up. Driving across the country during these turbulent weeks, one hears many names for Boris Johnson. Clown is one of the more benign for them. Leaving the Tory stronghold of Boston, the terms become coarser and supporters are harder to find. This is also the case in the port city of Hartlepool on the northeast coast of England, even though the decades-old bastion of the Social Democratic Labour Party has also been firmly in Tory hands since a by-election last year. The green lettering Jill Mortimer MP on the windows of the constituency office is still shiny. Back then, in spring 2021, at the height of the vaccination campaign, Boris Johnson got good poll numbers, and his party colleague Mortimer was the first Conservative MP for Hartlepool to move into the House of Commons with 60% of the vote. The region is the youngest so-called Red Wall seat. That's the name of the constituencies that were traditionally in Labour hands and only recently went to the Tories. "He has to resign, he lied to Parliament, he has to go," says pensioner Dougie McLean, who can be found drinking a pint in the Three Brass Monkeys pub in the evening, and who usually puts his cross on the ballot with Labour. The pub's mascots are the 3 famous monkey hats, one covering his mouth, one covering his eyes, and the third covering his ears. Carol Brown from the next table also thinks it's appropriate not to look so closely at what was a party and what wasn't. She and her husband never voted, are not particularly interested in politics. It was really difficult for Johnson, and if someone else had been Prime Minister, they would certainly have celebrated too, they say. "I think he should stay, I like him," says Brown. But for some, living in Hartlepool and supporting the Tory party is beyond imagination. Hartlepool has nothing. The people of Hartlepool have absolutely nothing, says one of the few strollers on the town's beach, a 77-year-old local resident who remembers how the now derelict pier was built when he was young. With its white sandy beach and rolling dunes, Hartlepool could be a tourist paradise. But there are no beach chairs, no jetty, not even a kiosk where you could buy an ice cream in summer. On a sunny February day, the coast is almost deserted, and you can count a few walkers on one hand. Those who live in Hartlepool often cannot afford to simply enjoy the great outdoors. In the city centre, many shops are empty or have their shutters pulled all the way down. One of the large letters is missing on a formerly magnificent building. The former Grand Hotel is now only the Rand Hotel. Many there agree that they have little hope. It doesn't really matter who is Prime Minister, says Rosemary Sladden, who has lived all over the world, including here in Germany, by the way. The real damage happened when we left Europe. She herself is out of politics, though. And the same goes for two taxi drivers who are waiting for passengers in front of the train station and only have a tired laugh for Boris Johnson. Both had at least hoped that Brexit would improve their lives, but so far they too have been disappointed. They are outraged that political opponents in Westminster attack each other in Parliament and then drink a beer together in the pub. A corrupt, elitist capital city bubble that knows nothing about what occupies people here in the north. They are all the same, says one of the two. Whether Boris Johnson or not, that's a side issue in that region. And for them it may be, but for many places in the country it isn't. But it shows something about the difference between the government and the people in the country. And I'll see you in my next video. Bis gleich.